Hello and welcome back to another Thoughts per episode Bleach 1000 Year Blood War edition. Today it's a double episode, baby. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch the 12th episode and then I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm going to watch the 13th episode and then I'm going to talk about it. So episode 12, Everything But the Rain, June Truth. I think this was a really bloody good retelling of the events of the manga. I don't really know how to put it any more than that. The episode did a really good job of selling the love between Isshin and Misaki, especially at the end when he was talking about like later on how she grew up a bit more, and then he opened his medical clinic and they started seeing each other and all that stuff, and how Ichigo was born. It was really like convincing as like a story of like just showing how much Isshin loved Misaki and how much he loves Ichigo and all that, and it was really sweet. It was also really fun to see Urahara again. Obviously we saw him at the start of the season, but this is chronologically before any of that, and I like Urahara. He's my boy. I don't know if he knows he's my boy, but he is my boy. It was also really fun to see the interactions between Ryukin and Kritigri. Was that her name, Kritigri? I'm pretty sure it's Kritigri. And the fledgling love between those two as well, which led to Ishida. And then of course at the end, the June Truth part of the episode, which for some reason there were end credits before, and then it was like, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 more minutes of episode. They did that like a couple of episodes ago, and I don't know why they do it, but they did. And of course, after being told all of this information about Misaki, the first question that comes to mind is, well, if she was this badass, powerful Quincy, why did she die? And it turns out it was Iwak all along, because he's the true end villain of the entire story, and he was definitely built up beforehand and not just suddenly introduced in this final arc, and we're told that we're supposed to feel things about him. It may feel a little bit ham-fisted. It feels a bit retconny, but I do like the motivation it gives Ichigo when he realizes that his mum died because of Iwak. I do like that. One little touch I also really like is at the end of everything, when Isshin's revealed all he has to reveal, the resolve on Ichigo's face and the way he says thanks, and there's a little moment of surprise from Isshin where he's like, oh, my son's so grown up. I love those little nuances. You'll remember me talking about this last episode as well between them, because there's got to be a reason why Isshin hadn't told Ichigo up to that point, right? He was going to tell him during the Aizen arc, but then Ichigo was like, hey, when he was being all grown up and mature and stuff, he was like, hey, listen, you can tell me this whenever you're ready. Because it was mirroring, I think Isshin said something similar to Ichigo once, right? So it is a little reminder that while Isshin is presented as like this badass, father figure who's also a bit goofy at times, he has emotions of his own, he has feelings of his own, and he was clearly a little bit concerned about revealing this truth to Ichigo, right? And I also think it's interesting that he lets Ichigo go back to Soul Society, because he would, obviously Ichigo's his own person at this point, but he doesn't follow. And this isn't a spoiler because I actually can't remember if he pops up in the manga or not later on, so you don't have to worry about that from me, but I'm just finding it interesting. Like, is there a part of him that resents Soul Society for, I don't know, like not doing more to protect the Quincy's instead of just annihilating them? Like, is there a part of him that thinks, I'm not going back to help Soul Society because they don't deserve it? But then maybe he does show up later on and I'm just not remembering it. What's really interesting is, I think it was earlier this year, I reread the entire manga and had a brilliant time with it. I made a video on it, you can go and watch it. And one of the things that I liked is how much I'd forgotten about the events which happened towards the end of this arc, because things get batshit, and it's really fun. And I had an entire section about video of me talking about things I've forgotten. I've already forgotten half of those things again, so I'm getting to kind of like re-experience this half fresh, weirdly enough. So thanks to my dumb idiot brain for that. Anyway, shall we move on to The Sword Is Me, episode 13. The Blade Is Me? I think it's The Blade Is Me. Hang on. The Blade Is Me. We've got another banger on our hands. This episode ruled. The fucking scene where Ichigo returns to like the dungeon of Asuichi or whatever, and he surprises Oetsu by like suddenly the Asuichi all kneeling before him in a row, like some kind of a royal procession leading up to the king as he goes and chooses white. Oh, that was so fucking good. I think that was a bit different in the manga. I think he just like turned around and grabbed one and it was white, so I much prefer this version. It was badass. This is then followed by a little montage of different captains who had their Bankai stolen and how they're preparing for the next fight. You've got Hitsugaya going to learn the basics again. You've got Soifon doing some press-ups with a single arm on top of a mountain because she's baller as fuck. Although I gotta say, that does seem a little bit out of place for like the head of the recon squad or whatever, but that's just me. Manga readers will understand what I'm talking about when I say that it's interesting that they left the Hisagi scene in. And that's what I'll say about that. We get a glimpse of whatever the hell Miuri Kurotsuchi is brewing up. And my favourite of all of them, we see Komamura. We finally get some explanation behind why this man is a wolf. Why are you a wolf, Komamura? I've been wondering for hundreds of episodes. I'm really excited for anime-only fans to see that particular scene where he goes up to this fucking giant direwolf-ass dude, and like there's this really cool exchange between them of like, you used to be ashamed of who you were, and now you have the gall of coming and asking me for help. It doesn't matter who this world belongs to. We'll exist in the shadows. We don't need no help. And like Komamura being like, no, the world's changing. We should help them. It's such a cool exchange. I don't think the placement of this particular little montage of the captains has moved versus the manga, but I do think it's a really good thing to end the season on because it's hyping up a bunch of stuff to come. We've also got the reforging of Zangetsu, and just let's talk about it visually for a second. The whole thing of Yasuichi turning into a raw blade and flying around the room and how they set up the forge and everything. It was so unnecessarily cool. It didn't need to be that cool, but it was so cool. And after the kind of dream sequence stuff when Ichigo thrusts his hands into the fire to pick out Zangetsu and the fucking seas evaporate, I'm like, that's such an Ichigo thing to do. Make the fucking seas evaporate, sure, whatever. Fucking protagonist ass. But if there are any anime only watchers watching this video and you're a little bit confused about where Ichigo's powers lie, I just want to say, don't worry about it. It's a little convoluted, and my personal theory is that while there have been hints at Ichigo's being a Quincy from the start, the actual makeup of his powers feels a little retconny, and I think that might be part of a reason why it's so convoluted. And even now, having read it twice and watched it once, I still find myself going, wait a minute, so that means that old man Zangetsu was actually the Quincy, but then the hollow was the Shinigami powers, but then what was the hollow part of her powers? The hollow and the Shinigami powers were together, like it's still a bit messy. But all you really need to know is that one of those swords represents the Quincy side of his powers, and the other side of the sword represents his Shinigami/Hollow powers. And I think it's fair to bundle Shinigami and Hollow power together there, because as Ichigo says, they're both Zangetsu. They're both, he's a Vizard as well, right? And like Vizards are still Shinigami, so I would say it makes a lot more sense if you consider the Hollow and Shinigami powers being combined to just be Vizard, and so he's part Quincy, part Vizard, or Vizored, or whatever it was translated to in your particular version. And if I'm wrong about that, feel free to leave a comment, because that's pretty much how I've been perceiving it this entire time. One thing I didn't realize he could do with those new swords is it seems like he can summon them and unsummon them at will, which is cool as fuck, because he's always had a sheath before, right? But he like lets go of them and they kind of like dissipate into one blue and one orange, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that makes it the end of they call it a core, right? C-O-U-R. But I'm just going to call it a series because, come on, it's a series. And I had such a good time with the first series of Thousand Year Blood War. Obviously, the Zaraki and Unohana fight, or the Kenpachi and Kenpachi fight, I guess I should say. For whatever reason, that didn't land with me. That gave me a little bit of a identity crisis midway through the season of, wait, why is everyone enjoying this and I'm not? But other than that, I fucking loved it, and I'm so excited for it. I know people want this to come back in the April season of anime or whatever, but I hope they take their time with it so that it can be as high quality as it needs to be, because this stuff was immensely cool, and we've got so much to look forward to, because I think they said there would be like 4 or 5 seasons of this, so it's interesting to think about what could come next. On a personal note though, these videos have always done pretty well on my channel. I don't know if this one will, because it's kind of like the end of the season, and I'm a little bit late in reacting to it and uploading my reaction, and I feel like people tend to move on after a season of something ends, but all the same, for the attention that my videos have had up until this point, thank you so much for coming and watching and listening, and it's always a delight to see TYBW videos doing well on my channel. Or, well by my metrics anyway. I'm not exactly in the thousands of views camp, and I don't need to be, baby. I will be back doing more of this content in 1000 Year Blood War Season 2, and I hope you will keep me in mind and come and watch me when I do. My channel is very full of various things, so if you don't want to subscribe, I get it, but consider subscribing, and then you'll know. And then you'll know when more videos come out. So, thanks for watching. See you next time.